So in part 1 of this tutorial, I showed you how to make this animate from 3 lines to an X. It works on a hover right now, but we'll change that to a click. We'll also make it open a mobile menu. So we need to create that mobile menu by adding a div here after menu trigger. Let's give this an ID equals mobile menu. Okay, inside mobile menu, we're gonna have a UL. Inside the UL, we'll have an LI. Inside the LI, we'll have an A. A, let's give it a href equals hashtag link1, just a placeholder right now. Link1. We could probably put this on a single line. And I'm going to make a couple copies of this. We'll call this one link 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Okay, so there's our links. Alright, so let's get rid of that underline by adding a rule for that. Let's say after menu trigger, let's put a comment here that says menu trigger closing bracket. Okay, so after the menu trigger, we'll have the div hashtag mobile menu. And in that we have a UL, and in that we have a LI, and in that we have the A. So the A will have text decoration none. And to get rid of the bullets, we'll tell the UL to be list style type none. And let's get rid of that to get some padding in there. But let's just zero all margins and paddings here by saying star or asterisk for targeting everything. And let's say margin 0, padding 0. So no default margins and paddings. Next, let's bring this to the middle, make it bigger. Make it bigger with font. Font size. Let's go with like 3.5 EM. So 3.5 times bigger than normal. And then let's give it some padding. Let's say 10 pixels. Let's also give it margin, but the margin's not gonna work right now. Well, the margin works for the side, I guess. I don't know why, but for these to be pushed 30 pixels apart from each other, we need to say display block. There we go. And then to center this in the middle of the screen, let's give the entire mobile menu a display grid, or since we're not going to be using any columns, let's just say display flex and justify content center and align items center. Let's give this a background color so we could actually see why it's not really centered. Let's go background color. And what's a nice color? Let's go with deep sky blue. Alright, so I think we need to justify self. No. Justify content center. There we go. And I also want this to cover the whole screen, not just under this. So the whole screen, that means we're gonna have to do, well, you can see this is pushing this down, okay, because the elements basically see each other. They're both display block or whatever. But if we give this mobile menu a position of absolute, we can basically make it ignore other stuff on the screen and use top 0, for example, to make it stick to the top. And we could give this a width and a height of 100%, or we can say right 0 and left 0 and bottom 0. Just have it spread across the screen. And it's covering the button right now, but that's because it's on top of it. So the menu trigger, let's say, first we'll say position relative, because we need that in order to put a z-index and give it a higher number. The higher the number, the higher it will be in the stack. And let's get rid of that red color, make it hashtag. I'm gonna start with black. Okay. And these, let's change their color also. Let's make them white. Okay. So I don't know, that's looking decent. Let's add a hover effect on these. So when I hover over these, I want the background to turn slightly darker. We can add a drop shadow or something, I don't know. But let's just make it darker with the RGBA background color. So, but only when we hover over it. So that means here, we're gonna say actually, let's do it after these. Say and :hover, background color, RGBA for red, green, blue, and alpha. We want 0, 0, 0, and 0.2. Okay, so now when I hover over it, it has a darker background. I also want these to be a little bit wider, maybe spread across the whole screen. So for that, I think, how big is the UL? Let's see what the UL looks like. Background color, just put a random color right now. Alright, so that UL needs to be with 100%. Okay, we could get rid of that background color. Now we need to bring these to the middle of that, so maybe just the text align center. Okay, that's good. What else do we need to do? Alright, so next we need to make this go away when we make the screen bigger. We also need to make that go away when the screen is bigger. We also need to make this a click instead of a hover. Okay. So to make it a click instead of a hover, here where we have the menu trigger instead of hover, oops, change this to focus. But the thing is, we can't focus on it because by default, only like buttons and inputs and stuff can be focused on. So to change that, we need to give this div an attribute called tab index. Okay, and give it a number. The number is just, I guess, when you press tab, I don't know, I guess the order, the tab index order, or I don't know. But yeah, so when I press tab, you can see I'm able to tab to this now. I'm able to click on it and focus on it. And you can see it still has this width of 100%. So I'm gonna say display inline block. Oops, don't forget the semicolon. Okay, so it's not 100% anymore. Also, let's get rid of that outline. So we'll say outline width 0. Okay, so now you can see the outline. And yeah, so like I said, this needs to disappear when the screen is bigger. So basically here, instead of display inline block for the menu trigger, I think we can say display none, make it go away. And let's put some comments here too. Mobile menu, this is the closing tag for that. Mobile menu closing bracket. Okay. So after the mobile menu, after everything, let's put a media query. So a media query you can use to change the styles based on how big the screen size is. So by saying at media screen and parentheses max dash width, say 900 pixels. At around 900 pixels, I want different CSS rules to apply. So one is want to bring back the menu trigger. So let's do header nav div hashtag menu trigger display inline block. Okay, so now when I make the screen smaller, it appears. Make it bigger, it disappears again. Okay, I want to do the same with the entire menu. So div hashtag mobile menu. For this one, I'm not gonna say display none because yeah, that'll make it disappear. But it might be nice if I could animate the menu like sliding down. In order to be able to do that, I have to use, instead of display none, and actually we're doing the opposite of what we want. We want to appear, not disappear here. So display block. Or what do we usually have that on? It's supposed to be on display flex. Okay. Put display flex here. And up here, instead of display flex, display, well, like I said, we're not changing the display, we're gonna change the height. So here we don't want to see it. Or no, we do want to see it. Here we don't want to see it. So bigger size, we don't want to see it. So this is for normal without the media query. So here we'll say height 0. We also need to say, because you can still click these buttons, so we also need to say overflow hidden. So anything that's inside also disappears. And down here, change the height back to 100% or VH. Mobile menu height 0. Div mobile menu height 100 VH. Why didn't it come back? Let's inspect. Oh, because the screen was too big, that's why. Alright, so bigger size, it disappears. Smaller size, it appears. Along with the button. Okay, so we made it disappear when it needs to disappear. Now let's make it also disappear. It should always, I guess, be gone. So here we're not going to change the height here. Instead, we need that to happen when we click this button. So that means when we do menu trigger and focus. Alright, so here's where the sibling selector comes in. So if you want to click this and do something to its sibling, so we're clicking this and we want something to happen to this. Normally, when we write CSS rules, whatever we put div menu trigger, we change the menu trigger. But we can use and focus and then use this and tilde, the squiggly line next to the number 1 on the keyboard. If you use that, you can target the div mobile menu because it's right next to it. It's a sibling. So we can do that and say height 100 VH. So when I click on it, it appears. Click away, it disappears. Okay, and yeah, if you want to animate it sliding down, we just need to add a transition. Let's add it on the original place where we put all these rules for the mobile menu. Let's add transition, not transform, transition. I'll say 0.3 seconds, I guess. Or what do we want to transition? The height in 0.3 seconds and 0-second delay. Okay, so now you can see it slides down and slides back up. It looks a little bit nicer. Okay. Next we need a normal full screen menu. So for that, let's go here and copy this. So I'm making a duplicate of the mobile menu, but let's change the ID to desktop menu. There's our desktop menu. Let's also make this look nicer by changing the list items to display inline block instead of display block. So let's do that here after mobile menu. So after mobile menu here, we'll add div hashtag desktop menu. And the desktop menu again has a UL and an LI and an A. So we want that A to be text decoration none. We want the UL to be list style type none. You know, it's not even showing any bullets because I guess there's no margin. We also want these LIs to be display inline block. Okay. And the A's also, I guess we should do display inline block because in case you want to give it a width or a height, and spread them apart a little bit by adding some padding, maybe 20 pixels, and maybe some margin, 10 pixels, and let's change the color, make those gray, dark gray, or black almost, and we need to make these disappear when this appears. So after mobile menu here, we'll add div hashtag desktop menu in the media query. And we'll say display none. We don't need to see that there. We only need it here. Here we'll replace it with this button and this menu. Here we replace that button and menu with this menu. And yeah, so that's almost that's pretty much it. But I guess we could go a little further and maybe center this or put this on the right side instead of the left side. We can do that. We can also add maybe like a logo or placeholder at least for a logo. So in the nav before the menu trigger, that's probably where I'll put my logo, and I'll just use an h2 id equals logo, and let's just type in logo in there. Okay, there's the logo. Let's also let's make these go next to each other instead of on top of each other. So we could make this logo display inline block, but I think I'm gonna go with CSS grids to do this. Let's go to the styles. Okay, so for the nav, because everything's inside the nav, we're gonna say display grid. Okay, and we want to split it into, I think, 3 columns. Let's say grid template columns, 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. Let's focus on the full screen right now. So here, let's say I want to center this. So I want this to come down a little. So since we're using display grid, we can say line items center to vertically center it. You can also justify content center. Let's get this to the middle somehow. Right now it's on the left. I think that's because, let's see, inspect. Actually, again, I'm gonna just change it in the media query. Instead of 3 columns, I'll make this 2 column and take care of that. So right now, I just want to make sure this is in the middle. So let me inspect it. Go away, inspect. Let's see. All right, so you can see that it is split into 3 columns. The logo's in one, the links are in the other one, and then the other one's empty. But the links are not centered inside their div, the desktop menu. So I think we could just do text align center on that. So desktop menu, text align center. Okay, now it looks more centered. Right. Yeah, we can leave that like that, or I mean, if you want, you could put it on the right side by just splitting this into 2 columns instead of 3. Oops, saving this instead of this. Okay, so you could have it on the right side, and you could give this logo a little bit of padding on the left, so it's not so close to the edge. We could also text align center that logo. So nav logo nav h2 hashtag logo text align center. Okay, and then we'll make this smaller. Okay, that looks fine. Let me inspect this now. inspect. Okay, so why is, I feel like it's a little too much on the left. I want to go more that way, so let's figure that out. It looks like, well, we just need to give the menu trigger, I guess margin auto would work. Where's the menu trigger? Div menu trigger, do we have a rule here with margin already? Here in the media query. Okay, so div menu trigger display inline block. What happens if we add margin auto to center it? Okay, I think that worked. Alright, that's better. Now it's on the right side, and that's on the left side. Okay, so yeah, you could do more. Obviously, you can change these fonts. I think if we made it, just make every font um, font family like a sans serif, or maybe you could get a Google font, make it a little bit nicer. But yeah, so there's a template for a mobile menu, and this should work fine on a phone if you test it. I've already tested it, even though I can't really test it here. I've downloaded it on a phone and tested it, and it looks like it works. So yeah, the only thing I would add later maybe is figure out how to close this by clicking the X instead of clicking away.